Welcome to Touch Technology Review. Today we're going to be talking about monetization and the things you need to avoid as a YouTube content creator if you want to ensure that you don't get demonetized. Now, the rules have been changing over the past few years quite significantly with changes that's been going on in the social political landscape. So YouTube has to make often adjustments to their policies in order to appease their advertisers. And let's not forget, it's actually the advertiser who's paying YouTube directly for that ad, and then YouTube will distribute some of the funds of that ad to you, the creator. So what's been going on lately, especially with all of the changes going on in 2020 due to the C-word virus, which I don't want to mention the actual name for fear of being demonetized myself, but if you mention or bring up certain concepts or topics that are controversial at any point of time, then you do risk being demonetized due to the fact that the advertisers may not wish to advertise on that content. So if we have a look at what's going on right now with the C-word virus, certainly you can put out content talking about it because it's affecting each and every one of us right now. So I'm sure a lot of content creators are going to want to mention what's going on. Now, if you're very careful about the way you express yourself and you bring up certain ideas and they're not necessarily seen as persuading the audience in order to take a course of action that might be deemed offensive or could trigger somebody, then it's less likely you'll be demonetized. But certainly the algorithm would be very easily tripped just by using certain keywords such as the C word, possibly vaccine together, any other word that kind of could be seen as a threat to this particular narrative. So I know it's very vague, it's very hard to explain exactly what's going to cause demonetization, but it's all about where your content lies in terms of public opinion, how offensive it might be, and whether it's going to be suited to a mainstream advertiser. Now, likewise, when you're a content creator and you're monetized, when you upload your video, you now get a new screen asking you to confirm what type of content your video falls into and whether it contains any of the following types of content which could be seen as not advertiser friendly. So let's take a look based on the criteria outlined in the YouTube Creator Studio, what type of content is likely to get you demonetized. Now, before we do that, I want to remind you that this does not necessarily mean complete demonetization of the video or of your channel. This simply means that by having any of this type of content that I'm about to read out, that you may end up with reduced monetization on the particular video that has this type of content, or you could end up with complete demonetization depending on the amount of content that goes against the policy guidelines or that may be considered too extreme or too controversial. So you're far better off being honest with YouTube, because if you don't put the right information during the time of upload, eventually the algorithm could very well find out that you have this type of content, flag you for demonetization, and if it happens often enough, you could end up with a channel strike. So honesty is definitely the best policy here. So let's go ahead and have a look at the types of content that may lead to reduced or complete demonetization. The first one is inappropriate language, and this is broken down into a few different categories from light profanity, strong profanity, or extreme. So that clearly means a few mild swear words scattered throughout your video here and there, as long as it's not in the first 30 seconds of your video, is not going to lead to demonetization. So hell yeah. The next is adult content. And again, you have different degrees from romance to blurred or censored nudity to exposed and full nudity. So obviously, the more extreme here, the more likely you're going to receive further demonetization. Violence, which is situations showing hurt, damage, or injury. And this section deals exclusively with the violence shown within content pertaining to video games. And again, there's 3 sections within this category, from very mild, where it's only occasionally showing some violence within the gameplay, to slightly more aggressive, right through to video clips that primarily focus on graphic violence, and those ones are going to be much more likely to be partially or fully demonetized. So the videos that contain more violence are obviously going to be much more likely to be demonetized, whether it's partial or full demonetization. The next is shocking content, again in 3 different categories, from light or moderate to graphic images and highly shocking content. And obviously, if there's light or moderate content of that nature, you'll probably get reduced demonetization. And if it's highly shocking, it's very likely that particular video would be completely demonetized. Harmful or dangerous acts that include stunts, content showing but not focusing on physical harm, and focus on accidents and pranks. Again, 3 different levels of harmful and dangerous acts that can result in either partial or full demonetization. Drugs-related content, and this goes back into what I was talking about when it comes to the C-word virus that's going around at the moment. If you're producing a video that purports to have some kind of preventative cure or ultimate cure for this particular virus, then obviously that could lead to some form of demonetization. Hateful content, this is an interesting one, just a reference to a marginalized group that are made in a non-harmful manner as part of a public debate or comedic context. Now, really a lot of YouTubers, especially those dealing with social commentary, would very likely fall into this category and need to mark this in their video. And that would possibly lead to reduced monetization, but clearly not complete demonetization. But as the content is falling into the category that is considered to be more offensive to a marginalized group, or if it then becomes hate or discrimination towards a projected group, then that's very likely to lead to a full demonetization of the video. Another one is firearms, and I know there's a lot of channels out there dealing with firearms. So if you're presenting content that is hunting related, showing guns in a safe environment like a shooting range, that's one level. If there's use of guns outside of a controlled environment, that's another level altogether. And then if there's content that shows guns creation or modification, which promotes gun makers or sellers or facilitates the sales of guns, minors using guns without adult supervision, that is obviously a more extreme category, and that would lead to full demonetization. And then you've got the final one, which is sensitive issues, discussions of modern acts of terror, events resulting in the catastrophic loss of human life, or conversational social issues. That's going to be partial demonetization. And then analysis or opinion around serious and topical events not described above. Now, these ones are very broad, far-reaching, and it's very hard to say what type of content is going to fall under a sensitive issue category. So this is obviously allowing YouTube to restrict many more videos than they have in the past that don't really contain threatening content as such or anything extreme, but this is really moving towards the suppression of particular opinions that could be considered sensitive issues. As you can see, that's a really comprehensive list of topics that can have you demonetized, either partially or fully. And as I mentioned earlier, keep in mind, this is not complete demonetization of your channel. This will only relate to the content in the particular video that you're uploading. That's not to say that if you continually upload content of an extreme nature, that won't end up resulting in complete demonetization of your channel. So keep in mind that if you are really on the fringe creating radical extreme content, it's very likely you are going to get the attention of the YouTube algorithm, and eventually that will not only have your individual videos demonetized, but possibly the whole channel. So the whole idea here is to somehow find a middle ground where you're creating content that's edgy enough and sometimes controversial in order to attract an audience, but at the same time doesn't trip the algorithm and have you demonetized. But if you are a content creator that wants to put really wild stuff out there, then you should be looking at some of the alternative platforms that have been rising up they also have some form of monetization, probably not as extensive and rewarding as YouTube right now, but there are new platforms arising all the time that allow for a more liberal approach to creating content. So if that's what you're looking to do, you could certainly discover some of these alternate platforms. You could still have a presence on YouTube, and you might need to tweak your content and make sure that it's more suitable for the mainstream, and you can have another channel which allows you to voice your more, let's say, controversial opinions. So you could always keep that in mind. So hopefully that's clarified some of the issues around monetizing your content here on YouTube. If you've got any questions for me, feel free to put them in the comments box below. And if you want to see more content from me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell next to it so you're notified of up and coming video releases. See you on the next one. Bye for now.